You're listening to The Black Woman in the Corner Office, the podcast for women who lead, influence, and carry a whole lot more than what shows up in their title. I'm your host, Dr. Ebony Stone, and each week we talk leadership, power, community, and what it really takes to rise without losing yourself. If this conversation resonates, go ahead and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Hi, I'm Dr. Ebony Stone, and this is The Black Woman in the Corner Office. Hello, and welcome to the Black Woman in the Corner Office podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ebony Stone, and like every time we meet here, I have an incredible guest for you today, and I'm excited to dig into her work. I'm excited to dig into her book. I'm excited to dig into her life. I am joined today by Miss Cassandra Crawley-Mayo. Cassandra is the author of the book, Is Your Way in Your Way? And listen, if you don't have a copy, get it. We will make sure it's linked below, and we're going to get into that book today. How you doing, Cassandra?
Dr. Ebony, I am doing phenomenal. And the reason is because I'm having an opportunity to speak with you again.
Oh, wow. Thank you. So I should let our viewers know how we met. As you guys know, I wrote a book entitled The Power of the Pause. And when I was working on that book and publicizing that book and getting it out there, I had the opportunity to be on Cassandra's podcast. So we are podcasting sisters, and I was so appreciative for the opportunity to be on her podcast. And now she's joining us. So last time we talked, we were talking about me. This time we get to talk about you.
I know. Imagine that.
Good stuff. So we know you're an author and a podcast host. Why don't you tell our viewers just a little bit about who you are outside of those two titles, if you will?
Well, I'm going to tell you who I have become a bit. Okay. I have become an individual, or I'm going to always say a young Black female who is authentic, clear on what it is that I'd like, what I want. I'm in a posture where I am living my best life on my terms. And that in itself is subjective, I know. But if I look back over my life, number one, I'm an individual who is grateful, thankful for what I've been through. I would have never, ever said that years ago. I thought it was torturous. I thought it was crazy that I was going through things that I was going through. So I'm just in a position to serve. I am here to help other young women to start living their best life on their terms. So because I have a mission and a purpose, I look forward and I'm grateful to wake up in the morning because it's driving me. It's my driving force because I'm now, you know how we think about, I know I did, every so often growing up, what's my purpose? Why am I even here? You know, I used to get frustrated over that and I never could figure it out and blah, 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 blah. But I'm in a posture now that I know what my purpose is. So that's who I am today.
Yes, I love it. I love it. And I love what you said that, you know, when you were going through, you did not understand, like, what in the world? Why am I going through this? What is going on? And I think we all get to that point because we are all going to have a test and we have to get through it for it to become our testimony, right? And I sometimes sitting in that is so difficult. And especially right now, I know the number that many of us are familiar with is 300,000, but I think at last count 600,000 Black women had been displaced through 2025,
Oh my
which is,
God.
yes. So many of our sisters are in the midst of that
Wow.
space.
Mm,
And so I think um,
mm.
just that little piece of introduction will give them hope. So getting into this book, they're gonna have a whole lot of hope, right? I want to spend some time talking about the book. There are some things that I gotta ask, but before I do
Uh-oh.
that, let's back up for a moment. So you have told me who you've become. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the journey that brought you there? Go back as far as you want to. If it's college, if it's you know your first job, whatever. Tell us a little bit about the journey that brought you here to being an author and a podcast host and serving
Yeah.
other women, helping them to become their best selves.
Yeah. Um, I came from a two-parent family, and I
Yes.
preface that only because for me, I understand the importance of having that in my life based on what roles they played. My parents worked. I mean, if in the event we didn't have it, I would have never known. They
Mm,
were able to feed me, clothe me. I thought, I had all that I wanted. And my dad stopped my mom from giving me all that I wanted, and from that, education was key. My mom was a school teacher. My dad worked in the post office, and my mom would say that's all they could do. All she could do was teach or be a nurse. And I'm like, wow. And during that time, they started integration.
mm, mhm.
And my mom, I would say, was the pilot for the integrating schools.
Okay.
And she had to go a ways to go to school, an all white school. And I was voluntold that I was going to go with her. So
Oh.
here I am in an all white school. From the school was from 1 through 6. Everybody was white, but my
Mm,
mom, myself, and the janitor. So
oh,
that was a kind of a I don't know if I want to say a rude awakening, but I've had that experience being around others that don't even look like me. And
right.
then from that point, I decided that I wanted to go to an HBCU. So I did. I went to
Okay.
Morgan State University, and
Yeah.
I was so glad to be there because I had an opportunity to associate with individuals like me. I mean,
Yes.
it was just very, very different. I pledged Alpha Kappa Alpha, and those are sisterhood bonding that I still have with some of my sisters. So
Right.
from there, and I'll tell you this because I want to talk a little bit about my career just so individuals will hear this. When I was in college, I had not a clue what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be. And I was feeling kind of out of sorts because the individuals that I associated with, they knew what they wanted. One wanted to be a teacher, one wanted to be a doctor, I'm like, gosh, I don't even have a clue what I wanted to do. And I did not throughout school until I took advantage of a placement office, and individuals, corporations would come in and interview you. And thankfully, I got a job, but yet the job had me to move to Birmingham, Alabama. Now, I
Okay.
grew up what they say was the end of civil rights. They said it was coming to an end, but it really, really, really didn't. So anyway, in Birmingham, I had another rude awakening. I was
Mm.
actually afraid because of
Oh.
what things I saw on TV,
Okay.
and um, and that kind of stretched, formed me, and
Hmm.
all of that. But one of the things my mom always said when I was leaving home, I'm going to give you to God.
Mm.
And I'm not going to worry about you, because my mom was so sad when I went to school. I couldn't understand it. My dad was like, well, do you want to go back and get her? Because you can't stop crying, but they never did, thank goodness. So anyway, I moved to Birmingham. And from there was the start of my career. And I will say that I was always the first African American female in all the positions that I had.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah. So all of that started shaping. In other words, I have a chapter in my book titled Welcome to the Real World. because
Mm-hmm.
growing up, I didn't consider myself in the real world. I was sheltered and my parents were strict and blah, blah, blah. But boy, when I got out there in the working world, it was a whole different story.
A whole different ball game.
Yes, it
Yes,
was.
yes. Thank you
Yes.
so much for sharing.
Yeah.
Listen, I love Morgan State University. Had an opportunity to spend some time there. I too was very sad when my daughter left for school. She went to Morgan State as well. She ended up transferring, but she enjoyed her time there. I enjoyed my time there when I got to go visit her. So love Morgan State, love our HBCUs.
Oh, great.
I love what you said about not feeling like your youth was the real world, right? I too experienced that coming from a very sheltered two-parent home. I didn't feel like my upbringing, looking back, was the real world. And then
Mhm.
you end up in the real world, right? It's a whole
Mhm.
different ball game.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about, yeah, I want to get into this book. I don't want to talk a little bit about it. I want to talk a lot about it, right? And so there are so many questions I have, but the first I wanted to ask you was in the beginning of the book, you talk about an experience that you had at an airport where you just kind of you did what needed to be done.
Mhm.
Um, you tell the audience that story, but tell us where that came from. Your ability to get up and do what you did. Tell us what you did, and then where that stemmed from.
Yeah. There's a passage that says, uh, do not conform to this world, but
Mm-hmm.
transform by the renewing of your mind.
Yes.
And I say that because my experience, work experience, personal experience, I started conforming. I
Mm.
started like, okay, I'm going to be like this. I want to do this. I want to do that. Okay. Overworked, burnt out, even questioned whether there was a God. It was just a number of things. I was perplexed internally. I may have
Mm.
looked good on the outside, but on the inside, I was just a complete mess. And I
Yes.
don't know if your audience have ever had an opportunity of this has occurred in their life, that you're going on with life, but you feel there is something else, but
Yeah.
you can't figure it out. I mean, it's the
Yeah.
weirdest thing. Like, I know there's something else for me. And during that time, that's where I was mentally. I was just thinking and thinking. I read a lot. I was comparing myself to people that were doing well, blah blah blah, on the outside. And and at the airport, and I think in my book, one of the things I said, I traveled a lot. And
Yes.
what I loved about travel was the people I met. I met some, oh my gosh, the people I met was just unbelievable. And I always wondered, why did they tell me everything? I knew people's life stories. And then all of a sudden, I would tell them what I thought and blah, blah, blah. And then I've had people to say, you know what? I could have hired you to be my therapist because you're giving me more. And I was like, oh, really? So I was really, I could connect with individuals. I didn't have to know them. I just could feel stuff that's what was wrong, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, at the airport, because I traveled, I don't miss traveling. I'll tell you this. There were a lot of, I was on the tarmac. I was just delays, traveled 90% of the time. I'm talking about an airplane.
Yes.
And I knew the role. I knew what could happen at an airport. I know people didn't travel like me. I know people have problems, they're hungry, they're frustrated, they want to go home. I just know the role when you travel. And this particular time, the flight was delayed about 3 to 4 times. And I'm used to it. And I'm like, yeah, they lying. Well, why don't they just why don't they just say the truth? And it was gobs of people waiting for this plane. Then all of a sudden, I said, now one time they said, we're going to get a plane to pick you guys up. And everybody's like, oh, and I looked, I'm like, yeah, right, to myself. And then finally they said, we apologize. The flight has been canceled. You would have thought the army came in. It was like a war zone. People were loud, they were angry, they were frustrated, they were hungry. I mean, it
Yes.
was just so many emotions going on. And I just sat there and I was like, this is crazy. They need to get some control over here. Something's going
Yes.
on. And with that, mice were running through the airport. And I'm
Mice.
afraid of mice. And and I put my feet, my bags, and everything. And I was like this, and I was cold, I was hungry. And then I just sat and I watched, and I could feel the emotions. People were just didn't know what to do, where to go. It was like 10 in the evening. And all of a sudden, I got up, I went to the attendants, and I asked them for certain information. I can't go in detail because we'd be here a long time, but it is in the book.
Yeah.
The title is My Out of Body Experience. So I got up, asked questions, and then I took the mic and I announced to the people what the deal was. If they wanted to stay over, they could stay in this line. If they wanted to get another flight for the next day, stay in this line. If they wanted to eat, I'm sorry, they don't have no passes. So I just went on and told everybody what was going on. And then after I did that, it was very quiet during my announcement. And I sat back down and I said to myself, what in the world did you do? You don't manage this airport. Who are you to do something like that? And I got like, oh my gosh, I was embarrassed. And I said, what? And in my mind, I was like, what's going on? Why would I do that? And then all of a sudden, something said to me, if you would get out of your way, you could not imagine the things that I'm going to do for you. And that thing right there started my journey because I was in my way the majority of my life. And that was stopping me from doing what it was that I felt I was led to do. So that's kind of the skinny of that story.
Yes, I remember reading and thinking to myself, I've traveled, I've been in a position where I needed to travel quite a bit as well. And I've been in a position where you're sitting there and they're like, the flight's delayed 30 minutes, another 30 minutes, another 45. And you're like, no, it's not. You're going to just go ahead and tell us the truth, right? I could not imagine getting up, taking the mic, doing that. But what I could imagine when you were telling the story in the book, what I could imagine was seeing it happen. And I envisioned you doing that. And I envisioned the reason it got so quiet was because you were in the space that you needed to be in, right? You were finally, and you say that in the book, right? Finally operating in the space where you were supposed to be operating. I find it interesting that you went back and you were embarrassed because I think the embarrassment probably comes from comparison, which is something else you talk about in your book. I thought the story that you told at the beginning of the comparison chapter about wanting to have larger feet was really cute, right? When we compare ourselves, tell us what that does to us when we compare ourselves to other people.
Before we continue, if you've ever felt the pressure to perform, produce, and prove while carrying everything else, I wrote The Power of the Pause for you. It's a practical guide to leading with clarity instead of burnout, and it's available now, along with corner office apparel designed for women who mean business. Check the show notes for your link so you can get your copy or you can get your t-shirt. Oh, and if your organization is looking for a host, facilitator, or speaker who understands leadership and lived experience, you can book me directly at drebonystone.com. All right, let's get back to the conversation.
Comparing ourselves is the thief of joy, period. Because we always think that because this person did this, they're happier, they're living the life, they're living the dream. So you want to be like them, And what I have learned from my own experience, when people would come to me and said, I would love to be like you. And I would look at them and I'm like, for real? I'm like, really? And it was so sincere. And I said, sweetheart, if you know what I have been through, to get to where I am today, you would not want to be like me. You know, so that comparing just gets us in trouble. We get stuck because we think Mrs. Jones over there just bought a new car. I guess I buy a new car too, to keep up. And you don't have the money to buy a car, or wow, this girl, I'm telling you, she has it going on. She dresses this, she's this, and then on social media is the death of all. Because who's going to show bad stuff on social media?
Nobody.
Nobody.
I tell my children that all the time. I'm like, what you're seeing on social media is not reality.
No,
it is not reality. It's a box. It's at best, a 2x2 box. That's and somebody's decided what you're going to see inside of that box. It's not reality.
That's true.
It's just,
that's true.
And then, you talk about Mrs. Jones' car. I remember a couple years ago, I decided I was going to go buy a new car. And I had my mind made up.
Yeah.
What kind of car I was going to get. I was going to trade my car in. And I went to the dealership. And I said, excuse me? When the man told me how much the car was in the car. And I live in Detroit, or the Detroit metro area. And so everybody's got a car.
Right.
Everybody's got a family member that works for the big three, and you see luxury vehicles everywhere. And I said, there is no way people are paying these notes. This is not. And at that time, I was like, it wasn't a matter. I told them, I said, listen, it's not a matter of whether or not I can pay it. I just can't imagine paying it. Like, I can't see paying that type of money monthly just to get from point A to point B. And I told the woman, I said, I can't believe it. And she said, you would be surprised how many people, the saleswoman told me, you'd be surprised how many people I hear having conversations about what their car notes are. And I know they're lying. They're not telling the truth. They are. And so we're oftentimes comparing ourselves to something that's not real. Right? We're looking across the aisle at, I always say we're not looking at the grass is not greener. The grass is greener on the other side because it ain't grass. Right. It's turf, right? It's fake. It's not real. Right. It's not real at all. On the flip side of that, you talk about, in the book, you talk about the mask. I think you did a phenomenal job of helping us understand how the term 2020 has changed, because all my life, if I heard 2020, I was thinking vision. And now when I hear 2020, I think about the COVID-19 pandemic, and I think about masks. And then you go on to compare that to us wearing masks as we kind of navigate these journeys. As you think about Black women in the workplace, can you kind of expand a little bit on that in the mask wearing that we do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to share a story. Mm-hmm. I used to also train, and I worked for a corporation, and I was in a leadership role. And in that role, you wore black or navy blue with a white shirt, looking all, I guess, polished and conservative. Mm-hmm. And my style was different. Now I could conform, I knew how to dress, when to dress, and all of this. But this particular day, I was feeling like myself.
Yeah.
So I put on this outfit because I was going to be on my feet all day, and it was bright. It was very colorful. Mm. And I heard, when I was outside getting things out of my car, I heard people whispering. Mm. And then when I walked in, they were smirking. And I did my training, for that day. And at the end of the training, they stood up and clapped. And it was like, it made me feel good. I'm like, wow. And then they raised their hand and said, can we tell you something? I said, sure. When you were outside and somebody said, I bet that's our trainer. And somebody said, oh, no, because they would not wear them bright colors. Look at them shoes, girl. girl, absolutely not. And they said, well, it's pretty, I don't care, but that's not what you do as a leader. And they said they were so tickled when they came in and I was standing there, and so that's a time when I would have worn a mask. I would have gone with my black and navy blue suit, my flat heels. Back then I could wear heels all day. What so that's what I meant when I say we go in wearing masks. We are not able to be ourselves. So in corporate America, I felt I had to be polished. I had to, I can't do that. I can't say that, and all of that kind of stuff. And what that did for me, it burnt me out because I could not be authentic. And
Yeah.
I recall having a boss that says, girl, you are hilarious. You are so much fun. Why aren't you like that out in the world? I'm like, well, you're my boss. And you make me like that. You make me comfortable. But yet to be who we were created to be is such a relief
Yes.
because we wear those masks because because of the lenses that we have on, because of the environments that we've been in. So we think we need to be like this because that's the way they are. And
Yeah.
I refuse.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you. What advice do you have for the young professional, the Black woman in the workplace right now, who may be just starting out, right? And so they don't want to upset the apple cart. They are watching what's happening in the workforce, hearing that DEI is illegal or it's gone away, hearing the numbers of women who have been eliminated from their roles. And what advice do you have for her about that mask? How does she be authentic and put all of that to the side?
I would advise individuals, for me, to be prayerful, number one. Also, to find a mentor or a coach. Now, when I say a mentor, it does not have to be anybody in that environment.
Right.
There could be somebody that they've met before that they admire, they're in an association with or something like that. That's a little seasoned. And that have your best interest at heart. I would definitely get that because you can't do anything by yourself. You need somebody that is willing to help you. Now, there was a question that was asked to me was what were my obstacles when I first started? Being the first African American, and one of my obstacles was I was admired by some because of my color, and there was some that were crabs that did not want me to get in that position, And when you have a spirit of discerning, you can figure that out. You can figure out, do I confide in this one? Better not tell this one that, or do I do? So that's why I say pray, because you want to have divine people in your life that's going to help you to get to where you want to go. So those are the things that I would highly, and also, and know this, you don't know it all. Right. You don't know it all. Trust me. I think about my parents and my mom telling me this. I was like, they don't know what they talking about. Like, oh, please. But as I get older, I'm like, now I get it.
Yes, absolutely. So I want to ask just one more question about the contents of the book, because we don't want to give it all away. And then I want to talk a little bit about your process in writing the book, because there's some interesting things I found in the structure of the book. Toward the end of the book, you talk about I don't want to get into the structure just yet, but toward the end of the book, you talk about you talk to the woman who's in a good place. And why did you feel it was important to talk to the woman that was kind of in the good place, that had it all together toward the end.
That was definitely intentional because I did not want women, and mind you, it was very important for me not to be judgmental. The book was a labor of love for women. And I did that because all that, how I got, or how we as women get in our way, you will get in a good place.
Yeah.
It's not always doom and gloom. So I didn't want people to think, Dad, wow, like, oh, self-esteem. Oh, yeah, I got that problem. Just something to say, hey, you will get in a good place if you faint not.
Absolutely.
And that's
Absolutely.
why that was very important for me to bring up, because it's not all doom and gloom.
It's not.
Life can be good.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk a little bit about the structure of the book,
Mm-hmm.
Your process in writing the book. The book is a series of letters that I think that's really cool. And then all throughout the book, your faith is shown. You refer to scripture often, and so you can see how it guides you. When did you decide to write the book, and can you walk us through your process of doing so?
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, I wanted to write a book like 15, 16 years ago. I always wanted to write a book. I even have a vision board with me writing a book. And I realized that I didn't write a book because I was in my way. I was in my way because I didn't want people to know my story. I didn't want to hurt anybody. I'm a very private person.
Mm-hmm.
And there were certain chapters I was so reluctant. And I had a girlfriend to say, girl, and she knows me back in the day when I moved to Birmingham. She said, you told everything. And I said, girl, I didn't tell it all. She's like, what? I said, I didn't tell it all. So back to your question, I wrote the book during COVID. Okay. I finally sat down because something kept saying, I thought you're going to write the book. I am. I thought you're going to write the book. And it would not let me go. It was like, okay, all right. So I sat down, wrote the book, and I wanted to do love letters because I did it out of love. And I wanted women to know, I think the book is, to me, every woman's battle. I don't care what color they are, and so I want it to be done in love for them to receive it. Not that I'm judging. And also I wanted to, every chapter has a scripture for a reason, because it talks about even comparing yourself. When I read and somebody told me there was a scripture that God said, don't compare yourself because it's not wise. I'm like, really, where is it? So if the word said it, you got me. If somebody else said it, I'm like, no, but God said this. I didn't say it. So that's why I wanted to put certain things, because those believers, because like I said, people believe in something. If they don't, they'll believe in anything. So I'm like, okay, this is my belief. I'm not ashamed. And this is what God said. And then at the end, this is what he said about the content. Bring up a child the way they should go. Even purpose, like, and I just felt that sealed the deal. And I also felt God was pleased. And I also felt, because of the drama I went through to write the book, get the book published, I knew this was something that I was led to do, and it would be taken care of. So that's why I did that.
So it wasn't smooth sailing to get it published.
Oh, no. No, there were times when I would write my book, and there were times like, you know what? No, just forget it. And in the process of getting it published, and they had the wrong cover. They had, the person quit. I mean, it was one thing after another. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to do this book. And then all
Mm.
of a sudden, something said, it's something in this book. They're trying to stop you from doing this book. So you
Yeah,
keep it moving.
keep
And
going.
don't tell me I can't do anything.
Yeah,
And then I'm
yeah,
going to really do it.
yeah, yes. So I've interviewed a couple of authors, and I find this interesting. There's no, of course, for our listeners, there's no right or wrong answer. I just find it interesting. I chose to go one way, others choose to go a different way. Um, in this world, when you write a book, it's no longer just the physical copy of the book. You got to have an ebook, and you got to have an audio book, and all of those things. Can you talk a little bit about one, what it was like to go through the audiobook process, and two, how you decided whether or not you would do the audiobook or if you would have a voice actor do the audiobook? How did you make that determination?
Well, in the beginning, because this is my debut, my first time, I did a lot of studying. I got duped money, paying people to do this. It didn't come through. But I read that more people today are listening to Audible.
Yes.
And I get it because people don't have the time or take the time to write. I mean, to read.
To read,
So they'll
yeah.
walk around and they'll listen. So, and I also said, can't anybody tell my story like me?
Right.
And the process was daunting, very daunting. And the guy that helped me, he sat with me through the whole thing. And he would say, that didn't sound right. Go over it again. I'm like, okay. So he was with me, and it took more than one day. He was
Yeah.
with me through the whole process, and I felt comfortable with him because he was like, no, that don't sound right. Listen to yourself. And I'm like, so he also made it fun. And I found him on something, I wasn't referred or anything. So that's to say the process was difficult, but it was worth it.
Yes, yes. I love that you said nobody could tell your story the way you did. I agree. That's why I chose to do it as well. I think there are some amazing voice actors out there that do amazing jobs narrating. And so I just always find it interesting. It is daunting. I remember being in the studio and the studio stopping me and saying, okay, that's enough for today. And me saying, well, I could keep going. And them saying,
Right.
no, your voice can't even take it. And so
Yeah.
definitely not my area of expertise. So I learned a lot as well. So I love that for you. So a couple more questions for you. First being, do you think you'll write another book, or you got other stuff in the works? Like, what's next? Is it a book? Is it something else? What's next for Cassandra?
Well, when I finished the book, something I always wanted to do all my life, I said, thank you, God, I'm done. And and then all of a sudden I felt uneasy when I said that. And then I felt, he's like, hey, sweetie, when much is given, much is required. You have more to do.
Yes.
So what you need to do is you need to have a business. So I did. I launched my business. It's called The Rise Journey. And it's a 6-month program, Rise Beyond Limits. And what I do is I help women achieve their full potential. And doing that, I was like, yeah, I do have another book in my spirit. And I remember when it happened and why I said the name of the book. I always know the name before I write the book. And the name of the book was Life's Interruptions is the name of my next book.
Wow. Okay.
But what I've decided is I need to focus. So let me focus on my business, blessing women to achieve their full potential, because I know me, I can't do too many things at once because I'll be all over the place. So my focus right now is my business before I get into the next book.
Okay, sounds good. So if someone wanted to find you, go through your 6-month program, where do they do that?
Well, they could find me on all social media platforms except Substack. I'm hearing that a lot. I don't know about that. And also my website is CassandraCrawley.com. They could go on my website. My email is mayo@CassandraCrawley.com. They can email me. They can also go on my website, and I have different products under my website. But my 6-month program is not on the website yet, although I am doing it, but I've not put it on my website. But it's very easy to email me and tell me that they have an interest in it, and I can provide them with the template.
Okay, we'll make sure that we link your website below, that we link the book below, that we make sure that your email is below so folks can get in touch with you if they want to. So we are looking for big things from you in the future. I love this relationship that we have built, being sister authors and sister podcast hosts and all the things. I am looking forward to, this is just a personal thing for me, y'all. I'm looking forward to getting back to the East Coast and having some of that good seafood with Miss Cassandra. Looking forward to it. Hopefully I will get out there this summer and we will be able to connect. So looking forward to that and looking forward to all you do. So my last question, which I ask all my guests, is someone says, listen, Cassandra, you wrote a book, but we want to make a movie of your life. Mm-hmm. What would you call that movie? What would it be called? And who would play Cassandra?
Mm-hmm. Well, ironically enough, I've had a couple of calls. Cinematic. Yeah. Okay. They were interested in turning my book into a movie.
Yes.
And I'm like, So the name of the movie would be Is Your Way in Your Way? Okay. That in itself is provocative. Like it gives you, you have to think about it for a minute. Yes. And then I thought about a couple of actors, actresses, and one I came up with was Regina King because of the authenticity she has, the emotions, and she can go through this, but you don't really know it, but you can feel it, and you'll be able to see what's going on. And then she can definitely convey being in a good place. So that's who I would select.
Yes, and Regina King, she is. She's a bad girl in front of and behind the camera. So that's a great one. Well, listen, Cassandra, it has been amazing having you here. I thank you for being here and sharing with us. I really enjoyed the book from the very beginning. I truly enjoyed the book. Thank you for putting it out there. We need it. We need the love letters from one another, right? We need to share our stories so we know that we're not alone. So thank you for that. To those of you out there, I just want to say, if you don't take anything else away from this, ask yourself, is your way in your way? All right, guys. Until next time, keep spreading that Black girl magic on everything you do. And we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you, Dr. Ebony.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for spending time with me today. If this episode spoke to you, share it with another Black woman who needs this reminder. And don't forget to subscribe. You'll find links to my book, apparel, and speaking information in the show notes. Until next time, lead with intention and give yourself permission to pause. And you know what else? Keep spreading that Black girl magic on everything you do.